Well, greetings everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. Today we're going to be speaking with Norio Hayakawa. I've been watching Norio and his postings on Facebook for quite some time, and I really liked his view on things. So I've asked him to be a guest tonight, and I was doing some background research on Norio and was just amazed just how much background he has in ufology. He has some 45 years in the study of ufology, has spent a decade or more investigating Area 51, Dulce Mesa, Roswell, just the whole gamut there. And the other interesting thing is that he refers to himself as the Unorthodox Ufologist. And I definitely have to ask him what that's all about. So without further ado, let's just bring him on. Norio, are you out there, sir?
Hello, Rick. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out to join us. Norio, 45 years in ufology. What got you started back then?
Well, actually, Rick, I started investigating things from 1961. So it's roughly 50 years plus. But in 1961, I began to be really interested in the subject of flying saucers, which in 1961 was still a common word instead of UFOs. But anyway, when I was small, when I was growing up, I used to listen to my father's account of his fascinating sighting one night in the summer of either 1947 or 1948, when he was fishing one night in the Bay of Yokohama, Japan, and he had seen some really strange maneuvering object, greenish ball of light, slowly maneuvering over the Bay of Yokohama around 2 a.m. in the morning. And he had been fishing for years and years, and he knew everything practically about astronomy and, you know, everything that you see, but he had never, up till then, saw anything like he saw that particular night in the summer of, I believe it was either 1947 or 1948. And so he used to tell me and my mother quite often about it. Of course, my mother was kind of skeptical about his story, but I was fascinated. And, you know, I grew up in that kind of an atmosphere when I was in the grade school, you know, in the early 50s. But then in 1961, when I became a high school student, I renewed my interest in this topic of flying saucers. And I started joining various flying saucers or UFO groups in Japan in 1961, and also began to subscribe to magazines from United States, such as NICAP and APRO and all other kinds of newsletters, you know. And so I really began to take this study very seriously. And when I was attending a college in 1964, I was so astonished, Rick, one day, it was in April of 1964, when I was just looking at the newspaper headlines, And one newspaper headline really fascinated me, and the headline was, "Police Officer Sees Saucer Sitting on Sand." And it's dated April 28th, 1964, from New Mexico, from a small town that I've never heard of before, Socorro, New Mexico.
And this was, you were still living in Japan at this time.
That's right, at that time. And of course, that really had a tremendous impact. And coincidentally or not, in 1965, I had obtained a scholarship from a college in New Mexico, USA.
Unbelievable.
What a coincidence. And so I grabbed it, and I came to Albuquerque, New Mexico, directly from Japan. I had never, been here in the United States until then.
Wow.
But in 1965, I came to Albuquerque, New Mexico, the first time I was in U.S., and then I entered this college to study Spanish language, which I had a tremendous interest in at that time. So that is the beginning of my, connection with New Mexico.
Now, something keeps drawing you back to New Mexico because that's where you are now, right?
That's correct. That's correct, Rick. And I often say to myself, that maybe there's no such a thing as coincidences in our lives.
It sounds like your plan was written out. Yeah, it sounds like yours was planned to the T.
That's true. I believe so.
So you get out. I take it you finish college,
Yes.
and pursue your life. I know you spent some time in Los Angeles and stuff. When, as far as the Area 51 and Roswell and Dulce Mesa, which one of those came first? Which one of those did you attack first with your investigation?
Yes, it all started in 1978 when I was living in Phoenix, Arizona, because I used to teach in a high school outside of Phoenix. I actually was a high school Spanish teacher. So I was living in Phoenix, and in 1978, I got a hold of a book by Dr. Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek, two of the greatest authorities on UFOs as far as I'm concerned. And I was very much impressed by the book titled The Edge of Reality, in which both Dr. Jacques Vallée and Dr. Allen Hynek came to a proposition that the phenomenon of UFOs may surpass the commonly held belief that we have been visited by physical extraterrestrial aliens. And the proposition was very, very refreshing to me, because they seem like they have departed from the traditional nuts and bolts type ufology to a more open, wide, interdimensional aspect of this entire phenomenon.
Well,
and they have never come to any conclusion about it, and so I liked it. So that was in 1978, and until then, I was a very strong proponent of the extraterrestrial hypothesis of the origins of the UFO phenomenon. But anyway, that was in 1978. And after I moved to California in 1982, I became a licensed funeral director in Los Angeles, and I did this work for almost 26 years, from 1982 to 2008, and I retired in 2008, and my wife and I decided to move to New Mexico, again, by this strange coincidence, being that I used to live here. And so anyway, it was during my full-time career as a funeral director in Los Angeles that one night in 1989, I was listening to a late-night talk show program coming from Las Vegas. I could clearly hear it in Los Angeles, around midnight to 2, 3 in the morning.
Right.
And so I was really impressed one night with a special guest that claimed to have worked at a secret location in Nevada, and of course that was Bob Lazar. So I was listening to that talk show, the Billy Goodman Happening talk show, which was the precursor, I would say, of Art Bell type talk show.
Gotcha. The coast
this
to
was
coast.
in 1989, and I was so impressed with that guest that I did all kinds of investigations, and finally, in 1990, I succeeded in contacting a person that knew that alleged scientist, and I decided to take a Japanese journalist and, through his introduction, a Japanese television station came along, and we visited Mr. Bob Lazar's house in 1990 in February, and that was the beginning of my long years of research into Area 51. And so, the Nippon Television crew and I went to the exact location after interviewing Bob Lazar at his home. That was on Wednesday, February the 21st. And Mr. Lazar told us where to go to see the test flight of what he was talking about. And it was a Wednesday. And the reason it was Wednesday, because Mr. Lazar told us that Wednesdays are usually the day of the week that they test fly these things. And Lord behold, we arrived at this desolate stretch of highway 375, 2 hours from Las Vegas, and we set up a TV cameras, and there were 9 of us, the TV crew. And Lord behold, just as exactly as Mr. Lazar told us, after sundown we began to see a very interesting orangish light suddenly appearing over the mountains and demonstrating what at that time we thought was a strange kind of a maneuvering that we never seen an aircraft do. But anyway, that appearance took place about 3 times that evening.
And you got this on tape?
That was the beginning of my whole infatuation with Area 51.
Now, Norio,
yes.
Did the TV crew get that activity on tape?
Oh, yes. In fact, the Nippon Television station created a 2-hour special in 1990 in March, when most of the people in the United States had never heard of Area 51. A Japanese television station had a 2-hour documentary program about Area 51 as well as Dulce, New Mexico. And it was a big hit in Japan. And in 1990, yes, some people in Las Vegas area, Nevada, had heard of Area 51 because of the sudden appearance of Bob Lazar in 1989 on, CBS Channel TV in Las Vegas, George Knapp's, eyewitness program,
right.
Eyewitness News program, in which Lazar appeared, at first. But anyway.
Let me ask you a question. Before we go too much further, I want to ask you, Bob Lazar, I can remember, back in the 90s when he was a thing. Um, and then, of course, people tried to debunk this. They found no records of his college attendance and all this. Now, you're sitting here telling me that he told you where these things were, and you went out there, and lo and behold, they were there. The only other person that I've heard say that is Mr. Lear, supposedly is Bob Lazar's friend, and he said he went out there when Bob said to go out there, and he saw them too. What are your thoughts on Bob Lazar at this point in time, 20 years later, or whatever?
At this point in time, yes, I still have no conclusion about Mr. Lazar. He now lives in Michigan and has his own business called United Nuclear, which he has been doing for many years. He used to live in Albuquerque until 2008, and he used to live in the mountains, Sandia Mountains of Albuquerque, and then he moved to Michigan the very same year that I moved to Albuquerque. But anyway, he still seems to be conducting some projects indirectly with, some kind of defense contractors. So there is no question in my mind that he knows what he's doing. But whether he was telling a lie about Area 51 as far as S4 and back engineering of an alien craft, there's no proof. There's no proof whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's just that his first-hand testimony. And I have been in this UFO research since 1961. I've been to a lot of places. I've seen a lot of things. I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people's witnesses, and yet I cannot come to any solid conclusion as to what the UFO phenomenon is, much less come to any conclusion that we are being visited by physical extraterrestrial aliens in physical extraterrestrial craft. It's a great concept and a great topic, but unfortunately, the bottom line, we have to look at the bottom line.
Right.
The evidences are very, very difficult to find, and that's all I can say. But yet, this topic of the UFO phenomenon, in my opinion, is definitely one of the most important, if not the most important topic of our existence.
I would agree.
I can say that.
I
Rick,
totally agree. Well, let me ask you something, because, I totally understand when you say, there is no concrete evidence. In my viewpoint on the whole UFO ET subject is that you can't just take a slice of the pie. You have to take the whole pie, and I'm sure you've done that as well because you've investigated so many different things. But, one of my, the one I feel is most interesting as of late is the Rendlesham Forest case. What do you think about the Rendlesham Forest case?
Well, it seems definitely that something happened in that area. I mean, there are many, many reports, credible reports coming from military personnel, and something must have happened. But just like in any other case, let's take, for example, a 1986 case that happened over Alaska, a UFO sighting by a Japan Airlines experienced pilot.
Right.
And that was the famous Alaskan case. And so there's no denying that these accounts, these things happened. No denying about it, but by logic, it's very premature to come to a conclusion that what they saw was a physical extraterrestrial craft of something.
Being controlled by extraterrestrials.
Right, that's right. That is exactly what I wanted to say. Nevertheless, it's so important, and I actually, when you talked about John Lear, it was exactly in 1988 that I received a packet from John Lear through a mutual friend of ours. His name was Tal Levesque, or Jason Bishop. He and John Lear knew each other, and so with Tal Levesque's introduction, John Lear sent to me his hypothesis in 1988. And his hypothesis was that Area 51 and the Dulce underground base are definitely two of the most important locations in this world, and that what is happening, what had been happening at Dulce underground base, is so serious and can affect the entire humanity. And that was in 1988, when nobody had heard of Area 51. In fact, there were few researchers that heard about Area 51 back in 1988, and some of them were people like William Moore. William Moore and Bill Steinman and other few have already known about the existence of an Area 51 facility in Nevada, even before, way before Bob Lazar even came up. But it was in 1988 that I first heard of Dulce underground base. But this is not to say that the Dulce underground base rumors began in 1988. In fact, it already began in 1981.
Wow.
The very same year that William Moore and Charles Berlitz came up with this book about the Roswell incident. Did you know, Rick, that until William Moore and Charles Berlitz's book, The Roswell Incident, until that book came out in 1981, most of the world hadn't heard about Roswell. In fact, some of them may have heard about Roswell in 1947 after reading a newspaper account, but that newspaper account, was changed the following day to a weather balloon story, and from then on, the most of the world forgot about Roswell until 1981. I believe it was 1981. It could be 1980, but that was when so many things started to happen. And the first is the Paul Benowitz incident started around 1980. And then, of course, the Roswell story resurfaced in 1980, all at the same time. Bill Moore, or William Moore, was in Albuquerque in 1980 talking to Paul Benowitz at the same time that his book was published, or around the same time. And so both the Roswell story and the Dulce story, and also the Area 51 story, came basically around the same time, even though Area 51 came a little later, like in 1987. But this is the whole background of things, historically or chronological background. And what catapulted the Area 51 story to the public was in 1988 when Fox Channel TV network broadcast a 2-hour program called UFO Cover-Up Live in October of 1988.
I remember that.
Yes, that was the what catapulted Area 51 into existence.
I did not know that.
Even though it was only mentioned about 5 minutes in the entire 2-hour program.
I did not know that.
That's correct. That's
And was
correct,
that the alien autopsy?
No.
No, this was something different?
The alien autopsy film came out in 1995.
Oh, okay, so that was even later.
So we're talking about 1988 when most of the world had never heard of Area 51. And because of this 2-hour program called UFO Cover-Up Live, some people began to hear about Area 51, even though Area 51 was mentioned only for 5 minutes in that entire 2-hour program.
It was enough it was
it's
enough to
very
get people
strange.
going.
And, going back to Area 51, yes, the Nippon television, program had a 2-hour program about the Area 51 and also Dulce, because right after we finished filming Area 51, we flew to New Mexico and began to interview the residents of Dulce, New Mexico. That was in 1990, early March. And while we were interviewing the local Native American people on the street of Dulce, New Mexico, we were detained by the police chief over there.
Wow. Why did they detain you?
Well,
just because you had cameras?
That's a big question, but I believe that they had never seen a TV crew there coming with large TV equipment and interviewing the people on the street. And maybe they felt, I don't know, you have to know that this is an Indian reservation.
Yeah. They're very protective, I think, of their land.
That's right.
Yeah.
But anyway, I asked the police chief if we were doing anything wrong, and he didn't answer any question, but he just took all our names and IDs and information, and at the end of our temporary 1-hour detainment, I asked him if it's true that there is a secret alien or flying saucer base here, at which time his countenance suddenly changed, and he simply said, "I don't want to talk about it." That was his answer, and that was the last of what we heard from him in 1990.
Well, let me ask you.
Yes.
Let me ask you about Dulce a little bit, because
yes,
I am not super familiar with it. I've seen some shows on it and read a little bit about it, but the people out there who live out there, are they actually seeing a flying craft coming and going from the Mesa area?
Dulce is not like Roswell, where nothing has been happening since 1947. Dulce, New Mexico is a place where even today there seems to be frequent reports of residents seeing some strange lights over the Archuleta Mesa and the surrounding areas, even today. Not only that, but many people in that area claim to see even things like, purportedly, things like Bigfoot and near the Navajo River area of Dulce. And, it's very fascinating, and reports like this still go on. In fact, 2 years ago, I interviewed a person that took a picture with a cell phone camera of what looks like a flying saucer with the balls of light surrounding the football-shaped object. And he still has that cell phone photo in his cell phone. And I posted that photo many times on Facebook, and I still haven't come to any conclusion. There are other people in the Dulce area who claim to have seen lots of things. In fact, the population of Dulce is about 2,600 right now, but everybody knows of a friend or a family member or a relative who claim to have seen things. And personally, it's something it's just a normal thing that people see things there. So I go over there quite often. It's only about 3 hours drive from where I'm living here in New Mexico. So I got to know lots of people in Dulce, and there's a controversy there. Half of the people in Dulce seem to think that there's definitely something going on. Half of the people think that there could be some kind of a base there. But the other half of the people seem to be skeptical. But so, it's a fascinating place. No question about it. What's fascinating, Rick, about that place is that it is part of a Native American Indian reservation where there are lots of deep-rooted spiritual and cultural beliefs. Some of those beliefs by Native Americans border, something that's close to paranormal phenomenon, such as skinwalkers and apparitions and hearing of strange chantings and so on. And this is all part of their spiritual and cultural beliefs. So it's coincidental that things like flying saucers are reported there, but yet there's no physical, irrefutable documentary evidence whatsoever that there is a physical underground base either under Archuleta Mesa or anywhere near Dulce.
Wow.
Yet the rumor keeps going on.
Well, it sure does. It sure does. And Norio, we are just up to our break here, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit more about your proclaimed unorthodox view on ufology, okay?
Yes, that's a good subject.
So let's just hang in there. Folks, we'll take a 60-second break, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
It's landed. Ideal's new astrobase has just landed. Look, the space lock is opening. And here comes the astronaut. He's being lowered from the astrobase into the remote-controlled scout car. The two space probes are being mounted for launching. The car is scanning the area. And there go the space probes. They're calling them back to the astrobase. Mission accomplished. Ideal's astrobase and Colonel Macaulay's space helmet are the greatest way to play outer space. You can scan the skies, launch deep space probes, fire rockets, destroy stray meteorites. Ideal's astrobase is at your favorite toy store. Get your Ideal astrobase today.
Welcome back, everyone. We are speaking to Norio Hayakawa, and it's been a fantastic conversation so far. But at this point, I wanted to ask Norio, I guess this is a self-proclaimed description, but you refer to yourself as the unorthodox ufologist. Where did that all come from? And tell us a little bit more about why unorthodox. Is it the way you research or your final views on things? Tell us about it.
Well, Rick, I hate the word ufology and ufologist because, it's like a study of something that that we can't really, touch In other words, it's like saying that, ufologist is a person that knows about UFOs and so on. It's almost like the same thing as asking a person, are you a specialist on God? Are you, So
Understood. Yeah.
personally, I hate the word ufologist, and but somebody told me that your views are very unorthodox, and I accept it because I considered unorthodoxy in ufology because just because you are a ufologist does not mean that you have to believe or accept UFOs as alien spacecraft, and many people have the wrong impression that a ufologist talks about UFOs and consequently has to believe in UFOs and blah, 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 but that's not true. And
Right.
I don't mind being called an unorthodox ufologist because I also go into the culture itself of ufology. And it is a very important aspect of a culture because just like in anything, there's science, there's religion, there's sociology, all kinds of discipline of studies. And ufology, to me, is part of a culture that started mainly in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of what I call the Americana. It's a segment of a society that is absolutely fascinated by this topic of UFOs and aliens and even conspiracies. So I look at this whole study of so-called ufology from a cultural aspect as well. And I have, as I told you in the beginning, I have interviewed so many people. I have gone to lots of places of interest, and I have done on-site researches at, places that are well known, like Nevada and, New Mexico and so on. And I like to do personal, travel to these places and come to my own conclusions. But what I like to say is that some people call me a debunker, and I have to tell right away that I'm not a debunker. I don't believe in debunking, but I believe that a dosage of healthy skepticism is very, very important in anything.
I agree.
Because there's a difference between a skeptic and a healthy skeptic. A skeptic doesn't leave the door much open for anything, but the debunker is absolutely a person that even doesn't want to talk about that kind of stuff, while a skeptic just has a door closed almost all the way. But a healthy skeptic like me leave the door open for anything. So
Yes.
that's my position. But yet, because I call myself a healthy skeptic, a lot of people think that I am, a debunker, or some people even call me an agent of a government to discredit UFO research and blah, 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 which is not true.
I don't see how they could come up with that. Well, let me ask you, Norio, since you have done all this research and you have spoken to all these different people, I think there's no doubt that strange things happen. We have photos now, we have video all over the place of unidentified flying objects. That's all we can say, right? That's, at this point, that's all they are. But they're definitely there. There's something happening there. So after 45 years, have you come up with your final thoughts on what these things are or could be?
Well,
If they're not aliens from another planet, like you say.
wait. Well, my belief is that, yes, there are two separate questions which most people get confused about. And these two separate questions are, first, is there any intelligent life elsewhere in the universe? And that's question number one. Mm-hmm. Most of the people in this world, including the bulk of scientists and astronomers, believe that, yes, there has to be an intelligent civilization elsewhere in this vast universe. But the second question has absolutely nothing to do with the first question. And the second question is, have we ever been visited or are being visited by extraterrestrial physical aliens in physical spacecraft of some kind? This is question number two. And the bulk of the scientists and astronomers, and of course the mainstream, and I'm including people like Stephen Hawking, who is one of the most brilliant minds, I have ever heard about. Even he says that UFOs have never been to Earth, or aliens have never come to Earth in UFOs. Now, this is coming from Stephen Hawking, but yet there are hundreds and hundreds of professional people trained to observe things, and I'm talking about pilots, airline pilots, military pilots, other types of military people, even generals, who claim to have seen definitely what they feel like something from another world, according to their accounts of sightings of strange objects. And there are hundreds and hundreds of these professional people who, say that they have witnessed these things. So are these people all seeing illusion? I don't think so. They are definitely seeing something, and I can swear that even my mother, who was a skeptic on all of these things until 1975, when she excitedly told me in her letter that she had just witnessed a flying saucer during broad daylight over a railway station in Yokohama, Japan, while she was coming home with her grandson. And she pointed the flying saucer, which was hovering over a railway station in broad daylight, to the grandson. But when the grandson looked to the other direction with my mother, that object was instantly gone. And this is her testimony. Mm-hmm. And I believe my mother for sure.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
She described this as a typical flying saucer with a dome on top, and, just like the ones you see in comic books or in science fiction films. Exact description. And so she became a believer. Now, do I believe her sighting, even though it was just instantaneous sighting? I definitely believe her that she saw that. But what she saw is a different question.
Right.
I still don't know.
Right, because, the human mind is conditioned to react to visual stimuli with its database of knowledge, right? So if she sees something, her brain interprets it as a flying saucer. That's what she's going to think she saw. And that's what's so unbelievable about this topic. It just goes in so many different directions.
It does, and that's why I'm saying that even highly respected researchers, which I named, and Dr. Jacques Vallée as well as Dr. Hynek, came to the conclusion that perhaps there are more things in this world that exist that we don't see with our naked eyes. And maybe it has something to do with temporal inclusion into our dimension of some kind of intelligence from another dimension that sometimes break into our dimension instantaneously and disappear instantaneously. So we still don't know the real truth behind this amazing phenomenon called the UFO phenomenon, which I believe did not start in 1947 with the Kenneth Arnold sightings, but I believe that these things have existed according to sighting reports of strange things seen in the sky that you can check in all kinds of historical documents throughout various cultures in this world. So these things, the sighting reports of these things have been going on for ages, maybe from time immemorial, yet we still cannot come to any conclusion of what they are. So, you know, what can you say, Rick? We are seeing something, or we are looking at something that is still unresolved, and by listening to some of the most reputable people, such as astronauts, defense ministers of Canada, for example,
Exactly.
who claim that there are actually extraterrestrials working with the United States government right now. And, what do you think of this kind of pronouncements? But these pronouncements are coming from highly reputable people. Look at Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, who says that there is definitely a cover-up of UFOs by the government.
I don't know. It's a subject where the more you talk about it, the more confusing it gets, the more roads that open up, the more doors that open up. It seems like it's a never-ending puzzle because the more information you pull in, it just generates more questions, and it's constant.
That's correct, Rick. This is why I keep with this research, because, as I said, this is probably one of the most important topics of human world. Because if you solve this UFO puzzle, I think everything else will be answered.
Yes, I agree. Well, you know what, Norio? I think on that note, we're going to have to call it a night here. We've come to the end of our time, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show tonight. It's just been a fascinating conversation. And again, I could probably sit here and talk to you for another 3 hours, but I won't put you through that. But
no problem. I have definitely some high strangeness experience of my own, but, this world is just so strange, and that, what can you say, but I really enjoyed and appreciate your interest, Rick, and keep up your interest in this.
I will, and perhaps you can come back again on another evening and tell us about some more things that you've experienced.
My pleasure, Rick. And people can call me, talk to me, or email me. Email is the best. They can look me up on Facebook or any place. I'm ubiquitous in that sense.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely get your Facebook link up on the video, and be warned, though, because I'm sure after people listen to this, they're going to want to talk to you. So you might get a deluge of people.
All right. Okay, Rick.
All right. Well, Norio, thanks again. It's been a pleasure, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And good night.
is to keep it